have our first opponent, Sicilian. And we have e4, e5. And we're going to play the Danish Gambit here. So he accepts. Let's play c3. And he took again. So here we have some options. We can go for bishop c4 and knight takes on c3. For this game, I'm going to play this bishop c4 and allow him to take here on b2, which will be the triple sacrifice line of the Danish Gambit. Of course, accepting the sacrifice like this is very dangerous for black. So just take a look at the bishops so far. They're in great position to attack the king. And I was just going to mention, if the knight ever gets out, we simply attack it with our pawn, pushing it back, giving us a free move. Queen to e7 here. I don't think it works. And this move is a mistake. Now we can just go for the kill with queen to d5, attacking the knight, attacking queen f7, checkmate. So this is one of the things with the Danish Gambit. If your opponent plays it bad, plays it wrong, like in this case, you're just going to get a quick attack and a quick checkmate or quick win of material. In this case, he should protect the checkmate with queen to e7, in which case we just take here. Okay, if this doesn't work, or does it? It does work. I thought my bishop somehow was here on c1. But okay, not to worry. I think we can keep attacking him, and he should have to give us a piece anyway. So if we go for f4, knight to e6, f5 is going to come in. He can try for some queen to h4, but then simply this move g3, and then we'll be hitting everything. And here with h4, we're just winning a piece, I believe. He can go for this move, but regardless, his knight doesn't have any squares to move to. So even after this move, we'll go something like queen to d3, and still asking the same question. What are you going to do with this knight? If he goes for d5, moves like en passant here work. Although it's a bit dangerous, so maybe I want to hold off on that, considering. But his knight does have this square now, so we do have to go for en passant. And wait to see what my opponent does. He has this move, but we're just going to take. And if queen to g3, we move our king out the way. But okay, he took with the queen, so I'll take this opportunity to trade queens, considering that we're winning a pawn here. I mean, a piece here. Now we have to do something about our pawn, because he's attacking that. So let's move it forward. And this does a couple of things. It also is going to disrupt some of the kingside protection that he has here with these pawns. All right, that's a very aggressive move. I don't have, unfortunately, this move because he gives me a check first, and then I'll be forced to come back with the bishop. So instead, I'm going to go bishop here, threatening checkmate in 2, since bishop takes h7 check, king to h8, pawn takes will be checkmate. So he deals with that very nicely. And now we're just going to play knight here, try to castle, go here, and then sacrifice on h7 if he allows me to. Okay, let's continue with our plan, putting our king in safety, develop the last piece. There's probably better moves here, but I have a specific idea in which I want to double up my rooks on the h file and deliver checkmate. So let's go rook here, attacking the bishop, which gives us a tempo on rook to h1. So he's probably going to take, otherwise rook h1 comes and we're just winning. So let's see. He should take and play h5, maybe that works. But rook there, okay, doesn't matter. We do the same thing. We come to h3, put pressure on the bishop goes back, and we go rook h1. So already should be pretty winning here. Okay, that's an interesting move. Again, we're just gonna continue with the plan. H5 is very interesting because I don't know if I want to actually sacrifice something there. Maybe I'll just go G4, then knight moves, and I'll sacrifice my exchange just to open up everything around the king. It's a very dangerous position for black, regardless. Okay, so I think I misplaced the opening a bit, considering I had, I believe, some bishop to f7 check, king takes, and some queen d5 capturing the knight that way. Instead, I went for all those complications, which netted us the piece anyway, but the game continued, and I think it could have ended a lot quicker than this. I still like my bishops. Of course, if he takes, it's checkmating one move, and my opponent just blundered that. Okay, quickly, let's look at the game report because I want to show you guys where I believe I went wrong in the line. Although I'm not complaining. It's a 24 move checkmate. So not too bad. Yeah, my accuracy, as you can see, was a complete disaster, 60%. But what I'm more interested in is where I went wrong. So far, these moves are, I guess, correct. Knight to f6, e5, knight e4, and I went for queen to d5, which the computer says is a good move, but I believe this is what I was talking about. I should have gone for bishop takes f7, king takes, and here queen to d5 check, picking up the knight. And I think this gives me a better position that we got into in the game, since still our pawn structure is pretty nice. We're gonna go knight to f3, castle, knight to d2, knight d4, and put pressure on the king anyway. Okay, so this is just the moment I wanted to see. I think everything else was just fine. All right, so let's get to our next game. So new 5-minute game. All right, we have the black pieces against Match Mila. And he goes for e4. So for the purposes of getting to 2000, I'm just going to play against e4 a Sicilian for two reasons. Number one, I want to learn how to play the Sicilian a bit better. And number two, show you guys some interesting concepts behind why we play the move to c5 and not some other center pawn move. All right, so he goes for this c4, trying to get a good bind on the square on d5. So one major plan here for black against these setups is to fianchetto the dark square bishop to g7, place the moves b6, a6, fianchetto the other bishop here, go knight d7, knight to f6, and castle. So that's what we're going to go for. First, we're going to start with this move, putting pressure on this pawn. He's going to protect with knight to c3, and we're going to go for g6. So getting ready to play bishop to g7 on our next move. And I'm not going to castle quite yet. Okay, so he goes for d4. So usually you want to trade there, and this is going to transpose now into some kind of Maroczy bind position with this dragon bishop on g7, which is very interesting. Still, his idea is to control this square. And if you're not prepared here with black, it could be a very difficult position because, as you can see, it's very hard for black to cross this line here. Okay, that check, I don't think it does anything. We're going to be able to just develop a piece that we wanted to put in this square anyway with tempo. So, and now his queen is pretty much misplaced there on a4. And we're going to castle next and play knight to c5. So that move doesn't achieve anything, and it's one of the things you always need to worry about in the opening when your opponent is playing moves like that. Just tell yourself if there's any way you can improve your position if your opponent plays moves that make no sense and violate opening principles. In this case, He's taking out the queen too early, giving a check, which allows us to actually develop a piece to protect the check. And the queen is not really threatening anything. So we'll be able to, once we castle and play knight to c5, we'll have two centralized knights. And he's just going to have to waste a move going back with his queen. Not to mention, we'll be hitting from c5, the knight will be hitting the pawn on e4 twice. So once we get a move in like b6 and bishop b7, which is still part of our plan in this opening, we'll be hitting that pawn 3 times with our bishop as well. So let's see how he handles that situation. He is burning a lot of time. I think he's coming to terms with the fact that queen to a4 was not a good move. Okay, bishop b3, very logical. I'm just going to continue with my plan to castle. I also consider knight to g4, attacking the bishop, but I want to free up the ability to move my knight from d7. And I still have this move coming just in case. I could also go for b6 right away, but then that might run into some queen to c6, which is uncomfortable. So maybe not b6 right away. Maybe knight to c5 followed by b6. Or maybe knight to c5 followed by knight to g4. Asking what he plans to do with his bishop here on e3. Okay, so bishop to d3. It's a very strange move, I gotta say. Knight here, queen c2, knight to g4. What's his plan? Where does he want to go with his dark square bishop? That's the question. Okay, I think this is still best, so let's go for it. Queen to c2. He didn't play queen c2. So he's just giving me his bishop. Okay, I will take it. I will take it, and now I'm still going to play knight to g4, hitting the bishop and also hitting the square on e5 with the knight, which will put pressure on the pawn on c4, so he will be forced to play queen e2. But in reality, I much rather have the bishop. That way we can have two bishops against two knights, which should give us pretty good control. And he's going for that. Now we just have to find a way to continue to put pressure. I'm going to play a6. I want to stop either one of these knights from coming to the square. And now with queen to b6, we're hitting this knight with two pieces, and we're also hitting the pawn on b2. So he's probably already lost here. And he misses the idea, and we're going to take a free piece. Of course, he's going to have a pawn for it, but I'm okay with that. And of course, if he attacks our bishop now, we just go bishop f6, and he doesn't even get the opportunity to capture a pawn. Any rook to d1 now, we go bishop c5 and protect this pawn on d6. Or we have also this option, which is interesting, but I think this pawn is more important than the one on b2. And let's see, he's got one opportunity to take this bishop now. Otherwise, we're going to go bishop e6. And there we go, bishop e6. Now he has to go knight to d5 if he wants good protection there. Knight to d5 now anyway. And we're just going to take that knight. We're going to take that knight off the board. He needs to capture with this pawn. And we're going to go... He didn't capture with a pawn, but that gives us this pawn for free. Sorry, mate. Now rook e2 is coming anyway, putting pressure on both f2 and a2. And also this rook is preparing to come to e8. So of course, this is just a matter of technique. And it's not necessary, I guess, at this point to have to make the right moves, just make good enough moves. Here, the plan is to go for a simple check, try to trade. Maybe I can also go for h5, h4, bishop f2, bishop g3, and threaten checkmate. So maybe I'll do that. But he has 27 seconds. I'm not sure if he has realized that or not. Maybe not, considering he's going under 10 at the moment. So we're going to win this game, and we're going to move on to our third game. So we've had a successful Danish Gambit and a successful Sicilian defense. So I'm not going to take a look too much at this game report. We're just going to go to our next game. And we have again the black pieces against Clo-Clo. Okay, against d4, I want to show just what to do against d4 with knight to f6 and play this Nimzo-Indian kind of structures. Okay, let's go for bishop b4. As I mentioned, the Nimzo-Indian defense, which is one of my favorites. There's a lot of ideas with the Nimzo-Indian. Sometimes you want to take here, double up the pawns, and play for c5 and keep those pawns doubled up like that and have easy development. In this case, I'm pretty sure the move that's supposed to be played after bishop to d2 is castle. He goes for a3. We take, bishop takes, and we go knight e4, and he goes queen c2, but that loses a pawn. So e4 here is premature, since the only piece that was defending the pawn has been removed from the board, so this netted us a free pawn. So from now, it's just a matter of trading pieces. And win the endgame. Okay, I don't see the reason why not to continue in this way. Let's go for d6. If pawn takes, bishop takes. There's also, if pawn takes, ideas of rook to e8, which is very interesting, but I like development. So let's go for bishop takes, knight to c6. There's also knight to d7, knight c5, which is also very, very interesting. Okay, let's go for this move. Now he has to worry about some discoveries on his king in some situations. He protects against that. Let's go knight d7. I am not worried about any sacrifices here. I don't believe anything works. Knight to e5, hitting the pawn on c4 with two pieces. And I don't see how he prevents that from happening. So we're gonna just get another pawn. Okay, we're gonna take. I don't see any reasons not to. Let's pre-move. Knight takes on c4, hitting the queen. Okay, let's go back. If queen back to d2, we're gonna throw in this move. But okay, he didn't let us. It was going to be a very beautiful sacrifice on f3 winning the queen had he done that. But instead he goes for this. If knight here, simply queen to g6 protects against any shenanigans that he might have. How to continue here though? It's a big question. Should I move my king out the way? Maybe just trade some pieces. Knight to g6. If knight here now, maybe queen h4 works. Okay, well he goes for this, so one less piece to worry about. Maybe if knight to, okay, he continues to trade. Let's offer him a queen trade. And maybe going for the rook endgame might be his best chance. But we're up 2 pawns, so it should still be pretty good for us. Here, let's go c6. If b6, he had queen to b7, and it was going to be extremely annoying. Let's try to trade another piece. Also, this queen is attacking the pawn on g4, so he cannot just go somewhere that's not protecting that pawn. So queen to g3, queen h3, of course. Makes a lot of sense. Let's play this move h6, which gives us some breathing room so that we don't get some background checkmate. But this gives us now the queen trade that we've been trying to accomplish for the last few moves. And since we're up 2 pawns, this is a pretty simple conversion. And 3 pawns now. Rook to d1, we just go d5. Okay, we're not gonna even touch that pawn. If he takes, we'll take with the king. Okay, so far everything's going according to plan. So we're gonna have a Danish Gambit, a Sicilian defense, and now a Nimzo-Indian, all three successful victories. Okay, the reason I gave this check is to be able to give this one as well and take the pawn, or he can go ahead for the rook trade, but of course, since he's down so much material, that's not in his best interest. Let's take or play king to f6. So we're up all these pawns, and now we're going to be up a rook as well after this check here. And we can go ahead and pre-move. Rook takes on g5. Okay, so our opponent resigned there. And all I have to say about this game is that our opponent gave us a free pawn right out of the opening, and we were just able to trade some pieces, and he was in a lot of pressure, and we ended up winning. So let's move on to game number 4, and again, the black pieces. And we're playing VZ Anand. And okay, so against e4, like we've said, we're just going to go Sicilian defense every single time. And so far, no one wants to play the open Sicilian with knight to f3 and d4. So this guy is going for this knight to c3, but like the previous example, every single time we're going to go for, if they go for a closed setup, that's not an open, we're going to go for this structure with g6, bishop to g7. Now, of course, if he goes for d4 now, it doesn't make a lot of sense. This bishop, his idea is to put a lot of pressure on e6, but by putting a pawn here, we stop any counterplay from that bishop. And next, we have ideas of expanding in our center ourselves. Now, previously, we put our knight on f6. But now that we played the move to e6, our knight is actually better on the square on e7. And this supports the advance of d5 as well. But okay, every time we can do this move, we take. And now the question is, do we have time for castling? And I think we do. He does have this annoying b5 trying to come into d6. But at the moment, I don't believe it works. Okay, a6, b5 is very common in this type of structure, so let's go for that. And here, I'm going to go for, we can actually play knight to c6 first, attacking the knight and attacking the pawn. And if he takes, we can take, but then he goes bishop f4, and then this pawn on d7 is going to be difficult to move. So I'm going to move it now. If he en-passants, we take with the queen, and this knight will be hit twice. And then we can finish our development with knight to c6. Even the moves like b5, also bishop to b7, are possible. And our opponent is playing very quickly. This, I believe, out of the games we played today, is the first one we're down on time significantly. Okay, this put pressure obviously in these two pieces, like I mentioned. And there's no reason why not to take. Play knight to c6. Maybe knight to f5 was also interesting. And he goes for queen to c5. What an interesting approach. Okay, I'm going to go queen c7, try to hit him with b6 and bishop b7, put our rook on c8, the other rook on d8, and we're going to be great. But this is also a very good move, trying to prevent me from playing b6 because he simply takes. But I'm gonna throw in this rook d8, which creates this threat and also creates this threat. And the queen doesn't have a lot of squares. So here we're already winning something. The question is, what do we want? Do we want the piece or do we want the queen? Actually, we're not winning a queen because the queen does have this square. So because of that, then maybe we have to go for this and just win the piece instead. Then after rook takes d4, bishop here will really be attacking, and that is a very, very interesting move. Okay, I guess we'll take. Wow, he's giving us yet another piece. I'll take it. I'll take the piece. Okay. Let's go here. If queen takes, we're just going to take the bishop. I'm not afraid of any queen to h6 because the square on g7 is actually protected by our bishop very nicely. So yeah, let's go for the piece. We've won so many pieces here. Wow, he goes for the sacrificing of the queen. Not sure what my opponent is doing. Let's hit him with this move, which attacks h2, and also goes for knight takes f6. My opponent wants to get really cute, but I don't believe in anything he's doing. What's the best way to finish the game, though? Okay, let's give it a check. Take on g2. His king's gonna have to go to d3. Then we go bishop f5 check, and he's gonna lose. Yeah, but that, my friend, is checkmate. All right. My opponent, I mean, nothing to say about this game either. My opponent just completely collapsed and gave us 3 free pieces, which is the equivalent of a full queen. And this is a very interesting rating that we've got, 888. Maybe I should play those numbers. All right, finally the white pieces, and let's try to get another Danish, but he doesn't let us. So instead he goes for a Caro-Can, and against the Caro-Can I like to play the advanced variation. And I think this is the line that poses the most problems to Caro-Can players. It asks the most questions, since it doesn't lead to those quiet maneuvering positions that Caro-Can players want to have. Now, bishop b4 is a huge blunder. Not a blunder, but a huge inaccuracy, I should say. When you play the advanced variation, usually you want to have this setup of pawns anyway. So by playing bishop to b4 check, he's just inviting us to play moves that we want to make. And now we're getting castled very quickly. There's a lot of pressure here on h7, and I'm already considering whether I can go for the Greek sacrifice. So bishop takes h7, king takes, knight g5, and of course if the king goes back, queen to h5, and there's no way to prevent the checkmate. But there's also things that is what gives players the most problems, is after king takes, knight g5, king to g6. And here's where you need to find a very good continuation, otherwise you're just gonna lose the game. But then we have queen to d3 check, knight to f5 or f5. So maybe we have to go for queen to g4. Okay, I like it regardless. I think it's a very practical decision to make. So we have to go for it. We should have, considering that all these pieces are here, we're gonna have, of course, now this is checkmate and he can't prevent it. This is the idea of the Greek sacrifice. The move that, as I mentioned, that gives the most issues is king to g6. Here he has to play this move, but then we're gonna go queen takes f7, king h8, queen back to this square check. The king goes there, and we're gonna go knight check, king back to g8. Maybe it's not so clear. We do have some bishop g5. Which then gives us the opportunity to go for some... What am I talking about? If queen 2 is still checkmate. We go after rook to e8. We go check, king here. Check again. King back to g8. Check. King to f8. Knight h7 check. King to f7. It's not clear. But still, I like my chances. Okay, so this has to be played. Go back. Actually, I wonder if we can throw in this f4, rook h3, rook f3, rook h3 ideas. Unless something else wins, but I don't see it. I don't see the rest of the continuation. So I'm just gonna go for that line that I mentioned with f4, rook to f3, and rook to h3. And there's not a good way for him to stop that. If rook to f8, he gets checkmated with this maneuver. And if knight to f5, this move comes in anyway. Knight to h6. The problem now for him, let's see. The problem I think he's gonna have is that this move is also in the air. So queen to g6, queen to h7 checkmates. Okay, good move. But again, this move, as I mentioned before, and now he doesn't have this knight on that was on e7. Every time I give a check down there, then I could always protect back to g8 and prevent the checkmate. But he doesn't have that now. And okay, of course, this is just checkmate on the board. All right, thank you guys for watching. If you guys like content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, there's going to be some videos on the screen for you guys to watch. And as always, stay safe, have a great day, and show respect to your opponent. See you next time.